So there's just going to be one element, actually two elements, mostly one element missing. Which one do you think that might be? Polonium. Polonium was missing for a year before I figured it out. Very often cerium was missing too. And cerium is the most abundant of the lanthanides. How could it be missing? If you read lanthanide chemistry, you know that it's about the most abundant lanthanide. But I couldn't find it in my or other people's houses. And finally, it occurred to me that they must be reacting together, so that every polonium atom combines with a cerium atom, and then I couldn't find polonium by itself anymore. I was testing for free elements. They had already reacted because they are so reactive. Now go to the next page. Actually, to page 12. There on the left, you see the polonium atom, and it's combined with the cerium atom, because that's what it does as soon as it comes up from the earth. But if it's in your water, because if there's so much polonium and so much cerium coming up all the time, of course it's in the aquifer. It is in all the water all over the earth. It's just that they take each other out. And that's our protection. But if we put it in water that has cyanide in it, something else happens. Here you see ferrocyanide, but with the other bleach it would be ferricyanide. Nevertheless, it's an iron cyanide, and they react terrifically with cerium. What a bad mistake to make. But if we don't know any better, we'll make such mistakes. So no matter which chlorinated water you're drinking, you're getting either ferro or ferricyanide combined with cerium and polonium. And that is the beginning of our real cancer causer, and that is called a carcinogen. Now, California has a long list of carcinogens. In fact, Proposition 65 keeps lengthening the list, but it is none of them. It is this little string. And then the cyanide, both the ferri and the ferrocyanide, react furiously with mustard oil. There's an attraction between those chemicals, just like there would be between sodium and chlorine. A terrific attraction, just like between polonium and cerium, so that as soon as they're in contact with each other, they react and combine. Now, cerium is a lanthanide, and they go toward phosphates. Both the radioactive elements and the lanthanides are attracted by phosphates. Well, what are DNA and RNA made of? Phosphate. DNA and RNA are both made of a spiral, like this, with a whole chain of phosphates along the edges. Well, that is what this little string gets itself tied up in. You know what it's like when you see tennis shoes wrapped around telephone wires? Okay? It's that kind of happening. You have this string, and it gets itself wound up in this helix. But in order for it to cause mutations, it has to react with your DNA or RNA. It has to react enough to be stuck in there so that it won't be loose and wobbly. And there would be only one place in that DNA, where it would be in contact so tightly, in other words, to fit exactly, like a hand in a glove, a perfect fit. And when you have that perfect fit, it means that they are tightly bound with coordinate bonds, not loose little bonds. And then they will give you the same mutation each time they land there. But we have all been taught that mutations are random. And they are. But for this purpose, to make a cancer, they are not. Because you have to make a whole set of mutations that are always the same. You've heard of the P53 gene, the BCL2 gene, HCG gene, and all the markers, the so-called cancer markers. They're all mutations. They're not random. It's always the same family that is being produced. And this is why you have the same family produced. Because the mutagen, which is the cause, is landing at exactly the same place on your DNA, and so the guns, so to speak, that are making the mutation are aimed at an exact same gene. Now, all you have to do is drink the water. So what you get from the water is the polonium cerium ferrocyanide mustard oil. How does the mustard oil get in there? Is because the chlorination that comes from the household, not household, but the supermarket disinfectant also has wheel bearing grease and motor oil and 3-in-1 oil in it, a lot of different automotive products, because it isn't food grade. It was never meant to be put in water. It was meant for cleaning barns and so on. It gets into your water because it was in the filter, and I'm not sure if the filters are regulated or watched, and because it's not the government's business about what filter you put on, or if you do put a filter on, nobody looks at it. So all the filters in existence, just about, almost all the filters in existence, are disinfected with the non-USP, the non-food grade bleach. And that's why it can have all these things that are dug out of a hillside with heavy machinery, and you're getting the oil and grease dripping off of all of that. And the oil and grease is automotive. In other words, it's dug up from underground where big pools of oil exist from dead dinosaurs. That's what crude oil is, dead dinosaurs. And that's why it is full of the same kind of oils that a living creature would be full of. It was eating this family, onion, garlic, mustard, as well as every other family, because they were big animals. And therefore that is what is in the residue of their remains. So you're drinking polonium cerium ferrocyanide mustard oil, and that happens to be the required food of Fasciolopsis busci, the onion family.
Where do you get good water?
I didn't hear that.
Where do you get good water? How do you drink water?
We'll discuss that. I'd like to get to it right here, but you need to distinguish your water because you can't see it from looking at it. You need to know what kind of chlorination it has. But if you do find that you have the so-called good chlorination, which doesn't give you cancer, you still have all the other diseases that you can have. So let's get to the new page. device can tell you what kind of chlorination you have, and we'll be doing that this afternoon. See, going to the 11th concept, down to about the 3rd paragraph, where it says, my syncrometer evidence is for patterned diseases. All our diseases so far studied have a pattern, the same pattern. And it's the pattern that you see on page 12. It's the same pattern as is used for cancer, but it has a different parasite, and it has a different iron cyanide. The medical sciences have already achieved the classification of diseases into syndromes so that every disease has a number of mutations that are contributing to it. And that's why you can tell it's this disease or that disease because the symptoms are similar. And there might be half a dozen or a dozen. In order for the symptoms to be similar, you would have to have mutations responsible for it and the same kind of a process going on. It would not be random. There might be extra random ones, but you would still have to have the main cause, which would be the set or family of mutations. My preliminary evidence is that the virus or tick or bacteria that you think is the cause of your disease, and that is the current thinking, clinically and scientifically, becomes a part of the same single pattern of disease. We call the changes sickness because we get similar results results from them. And that part needs a lot more study because I think it would be very fruitful to find the common denominators of sickness and try to help ourselves that way. So it's important to know that polonium and cerium and radon and uranium are all around us on this world, but we don't get cancer from that. What happens is that if you breathe it in or smoke it in or wash in water that contains it, you resupply the parts of this little chain. In other words, if you're living in a radon house and radon makes polonium, then you will be resupplying the polonium. And if you're eating cerium, in other words, having plastic teeth or rubber shoes, it would be resupplying the cerium. So that's how the cancer gets promoted. But it's quite easy to stop if what you have in mind is removing the polonium and killing the parasite. So it goes back really to my first book, where if you could completely kill the parasite, you couldn't get a cancer, or if you could completely remove anything else, and it's quite easy to remove polonium. The hardest part is getting it out of your tooth fillings. So now we do have an absolute way of curing it. And I hope you will bring your questions this afternoon at 3 o'clock.